So, hello everyone. Looking at this case this week, case number 10.5 or 10-5, Public Health and Safety Observing Offsite Safety Issues. A very interesting case, I think, because it forces us to think about the first canon. Here is the NSP Code of Ethics, and here are the fundamental canons right here. And here is the famous and incredibly important first canon, which is so definitive of engineering ethics. Engineers shall, in the fulfillment of their professional duties, shall hold paramount the safety, health, and welfare of the public. One of the first things that we learn when we look at Board of Ethical Review cases is that these principles or directives that we see in a code of ethics, they need to be interpreted. They need to be applied to specific circumstances, and they need to be further specified. Now, if we look in the actual code, I mean, to a certain extent, the code itself does that. And we see that here's Canon 1, and in Section 2, Rules of Practice, the first section or the first part of Section 2, is the specification of the first canon. Right here. There is a specification. For instance, okay, here's a restatement of the first canon. Engineers shall hold paramount the safety, health, and welfare of the public. Here, we get a little more directive. If engineer's judgment, or an engineer's judgment, is overruled under circumstances that endanger life or property, they shall notify their employer or client and such other authority as may be appropriate. Look how open they leave that. I imagine what this subsection has to do with is, well, an engineer makes a decision and is overruled by their superior at work. They have an obligation to notify their employer or client of, I suppose, their dissent and such other authority as may be appropriate, leaving it totally up to the individual engineer to decide what is appropriate. Other authority would really be external authority, I would imagine, legal, governmental, media, whatever it is. But that is left up to the judgment of the individual engineer. That's what the as may be appropriate thing is. But the rather odd thing about this section is it tells engineers that when they're overruled, they should notify their employer or client. But I would imagine that they are most often overruled by their employer or client. So then notifying their employer or client would seem rather odd. Now, so we're generally in the, in the area of whistleblowing here. When is whistleblowing? That is going to an external authority to inform them of some problem with your employer or client. When is that appropriate? Let's see, here in subsection F. Engineers having knowledge of any alleged violation of this code shall report thereon to appropriate professional bodies and, when relevant, also to public authorities, and cooperate with the proper authorities in furnishing such information or assistance as may be required. Again, leaving it open. And I think key here is when relevant, also to public authorities. That is, when it is relevant to inform public authorities of misconduct or problems with your employer or client is left, again, up to you. The first canon it's a tricky thing. I think that, an initial reading just says, well, you have to hold paramount, which means to put first the safety, health, and welfare of the public. It seems to be a pretty clear directive. but just what it means to hold paramount the safety, health, and welfare of the public is not really clear, or what one is obligated to do when one has a concern about that safety, health, and welfare of the public is not clear. And it's pretty clear that the code was written in a way to, acknowledge that, in clauses like this, as may be appropriate, to acknowledge that what the right thing to do in any particular situation is a matter of judgment. It cannot be set out for all time in a code. So, starting to think about the first canon, certainly a difficult thing. It may appear simple at first when we read the principle in the code of ethics, but once we actually start thinking about what it would mean to uphold it, what would it mean to violate it, what does it actually obligate one to do in any particular circumstances, it really takes a lot of thought. It's simply not always clear.